We're at the Petersen Automotive Museum in West Los Angeles in the Wilshire area. There's a lot of museums around here. There's the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, there's LACMA, there's the La Brea Tar Pit, so this is definitely a great place to come. This actually used to be a department store back in the 60s. It was a luxury Japanese department store which went out of business, then became Orbox, another luxury department store that also went out of business, and then finally was purchased by Robert Petersen, who was a publishing magnate, and he always had a dream of opening a car museum. So in 1994, the Petersen Automotive Museum was born. Now in 2014, it was remodeled with this awesome facade that you see behind me. Yeah, so one thing to know before you come here though, is there's actually the main museum and then there's also the vault. The vault costs extra money to get into and it houses 250 cars. And there's a special exhibition today of lowrider cars. So there's really 3 different things that you can see, but without further ado, let's go in and check out all these amazing cars.
When you get here, start on the 3rd floor where you will find the bulk of the Petersen collection. There's only a handful of really old vehicles, but they do showcase the 1900 Smith Runabout, which is the earliest surviving gas-powered vehicle in Los Angeles. There's also a collection of funky cars like the 1955 Fuji Cabin 5A, which was made from available scooter parts and sported a 1-cylinder engine. Unfortunately, only 85 were ultimately made as they were too small even for the Japanese. Now Mazda started making motorcycles after the Kanto earthquake. They soon moved to making 3-wheelers, which were really cheap to operate, and the 1961 Mazda T600 was popular with consumers. Here's an absolutely insane tiny car. Peel Engineering started as a boat repair business on the Isle of Man. Then in 1962, they made this tiny single passenger car, the P50. It's the smallest production car ever manufactured and debuted at 195 pounds, or about $4,000 today. It got 90 miles per gallon on a 2-stroke engine. If you know Eddie Hall, he actually drove one of these in the UK, which is pretty hilarious to watch. There's quite a few experimental and concept cars at the museum as well, like this 1948 Davis Devon. This is a 3-wheel convertible and was developed by Gary Davis and reverse engineered from the Californian, which itself was inspired by the P38 Lightning. Unfortunately, Davis didn't meet his obligations to produce the car and was arrested for fraud. Paul Lewis of Denver, Colorado conceived the idea for a futuristic 3-wheel automobile in the early 1930s. The car could easily reach 80 miles per hour and averaged over 43 miles per gallon. Lewis had difficulty securing financial backing for production, and the project unfortunately did not progress beyond the prototype stage. Bruce Myers developed the Myers Manx you see here starting in 1963 as a vehicle designed to be driven on beaches and in deserts. This is the vehicle that actually kicked off the dune buggy craze, and about 7,000 of these cool cars were ultimately built. In 1973, Curtis Brubaker borrowed inspiration from California surf culture icons to create this low-profile van. Unfortunately, it wasn't very successful despite a lot of publicity, and only 3 of these vans were ultimately built. Now, I didn't know where to put this one, but this pickup is pretty sick looking. Built between 1932 and 1938, this was one of the sleekest pickups of its era and resonated with style-conscious motorists. The next 4 cars are from the Joe Bortz Collection. The Pontiac Bonneville Special is a concept car unveiled at the General Motors Motorama in 1954. The name Bonneville was meant to convey high performance. Only 2 of these beauties were produced, but the name carried on in the full-size performance and well-known Bonneville series of GM cars. The Chevy Biscayne was also a concept car and would prove to be one of the most influential of all the Motorama dream cars from a design standpoint. Although compact, the car's wide stance allowed for a spacious interior, predicting the traits of small cars that would debut in the 60s. It had minimal chrome work and a trim silhouette that showed off tail fins that were becoming prevalent on production cars at the time. The unique panoramic Astrodome windshield that you see here had a tinted upper third that would later be used on 1959 Chevys, and a modified version of its rear end treatment would find its way to the Corvair. So some people know the Pontiac name is not typically associated with formal body styles, but one exception was a spectacular dream car created for the 1953 General Motors Motorama. The Parisian had a 2-door Landau body style, sometimes called a DeVille Coupe, which is pretty interesting. The fixed top covers the rear seat only, and it was actually a conspicuous town car meant to be piloted by a chauffeur. This is the only one in existence. Buick's Wildcat was one of several fiberglass-bodied cars at the 1953 Motorama. Fiberglass was easy to mold, making it perfect for trying out experimental designs. The Wildcat was Buick's first performance car and had a lot of unique designs and technical features such as push-button doors, a concave grille with buffer bombs, and rotostatic front-wheel hubs. These hubs remained stationary while the wheels and tires revolved around them. There was also a scoop on the leading side which aided brake cooling. A lot of the Wildcat's design elements, including these buffer bombs and the side sweep lines, would end up appearing on Buicks for many years to come. So the 4 cars I just showed you, they were all destined to be scrapped decades ago. But Joe Bortz, who's a car enthusiast, he had a lifetime mission to save one-of-a-kind cars from the crusher. And he went around to save and restore these iconic vehicles. So thank you, Joe, so much for your passion and dedication and sharing these beautiful vehicles with the rest of the world. The 1952 Bajeel Pateray Roadster was a one-of-a-kind creation by Ray Bajeel. It was featured on the cover of Mechanics Illustrated, and it was powered by a 300 horsepower Bajeel bus engine. It was a showcase of daring design and engineering excellence. There is a section in the museum that covers innovations in racing. For example, this 1913 Mercer, which was among the world's fastest road cars of its era. There is also the 1937 Delage D8 120 Aerosport Coupe. It's considered one of the finest coach-built streamlined automobiles ever designed. It was introduced at the Paris Salon in 1936. Only 12 of these cars were made before production was halted by the war in 1939. I love cars like this, but unfortunately, only 7 are known to have survived. Here we have one from the first generation of the Corvette sports cars produced by Chevrolet. Reviews were actually mixed when this was first released, and sales fell far short of expectation. The program was surprisingly almost canceled, but Chevy decided to make necessary improvements, and we know that was a smart move on their part. Interesting fact, some people think that the Corvette was the first modern post-war sports car built in America, but it wasn't. That honor goes to the Nash Healey by Pininfarina, which is a 3-seat luxury sports car produced from 1951 to 1954. There are other things besides vehicles to check out at the museum, like these crazy illuminating tires you see here. They're pretty cool, but they never officially made it to market due to cost and practicality. All right, let's get into the huge selection of movie vehicles at the museum. Instead of giving away the movie that these vehicles are from, we're going to play a little game. I'll show you the car, you guess which movie it's from, and I'll wait a few seconds before I put the name on the screen, so feel free to pause to play along. Did you guys enjoy that fun little game? Hope you recognize most of the cars. I didn't do too bad. There's also a cafe here, which smells really, really good. So if you want to spend all day here, that's a good option. We're going to go down the street and grab a burger, which is something to do because we're in the West Side, not too far from Hollywood. Just keep that in mind. Now in the corner of the museum, there's a collection of classic motorcycles. I'm not huge on classic motorcycles, but if you see anything that you really like, feel free to call it out in the comments, and let me know if there was something interesting I should have covered. Right next to the motorcycles, don't miss the Corvette Gallery, which was lent to the museum by the Charles Neerberg family. Now, some of you are not that familiar with different kinds of racing, so check out this handy little placard that explains everything. In this room, there's a lot of iconic Corvette racing cars, but the one I want to focus on is the Spirit of Le Mans. John Greenwood was a successful driver and engineer and was best known for developing custom wide-body Corvettes in the 1970s. Arguably, the most famous Greenwood Corvette, the Spirit of Le Mans, was built prior to the 1976 season to race in IMSA and at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Its presence, the engine, these wild looks, and a 222 mile/hour run down the straight made a huge impression on European race fans. At Le Mans, Greenwood qualified the number 76 Corvette 9th overall, but unfortunately the car ran just 29 laps before being eliminated by a fuel leak. There's a huge collection of Porsches in the museum as well, but I won't go through all of them. Instead, I'll show you a few of the ones that stood out to me. If any of these are your favorite, feel free to leave a comment below. While you admire these cars, I did want to mention my video is meant for everyone and is not targeted towards car enthusiasts. There are a lot of people who love cars like this but don't know much about engines, racing, or the finer details of these vehicles, so I don't really get into any technical specs. I prefer to appeal to people who like museums and traveling, just like me, as well as those who enjoy seeing classic cars. So please don't get angry at me if I miss any details, but feel free to comment below if there's anything you want to add. Also, if you're a big fan of Porsches and want a lot more information about these amazing cars, then check out my tour of the Porsche Museum in Stuttgart, Germany. Here's a short clip of what to expect in that video. Porsche had asked its engineers to throw out the rulebook to build whatever they wanted. The result, this Porsche 919 Evo, which broke the Nürburgring record on June 29, 2018, with a lap time of 5 minutes, 19.546 seconds. The last time a record was broken was in 1983. Now we're going to get into the most impressive section of the museum, which is the Meyer family gallery. All the cars here are considered masterpieces and are at the apex of desirability in the collector cars world. Starting off, we have another one-of-a-kind vehicle here, the Hispano Suiza H6B Dubonnet Xenia, which is a mouthful to say. This is a one-off luxury car made for French pilot and racing car driver Henri Dubonnet in 1938. The car was built on the chassis of the Hispano Suiza H6B, but it uses the larger, more powerful engine from the H6C and has an entirely new body design drawn by Jean-Edouard Andreu. I can't pronounce French words. This Delahaye 145 Coupe has 2 years, 1938 and 1947. It was originally a V12 built for high-speed endurance racing, but at the end of its racing career, it was purchased by coach builder Henry Chaperon, and that's why you have 2 years noted on this vehicle. This beautiful supercharged Bugatti you see here was actually given as a gift to Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the crown prince and later Shah of Iran, from the French government. And you can see some advanced features on this automobile, including fully skirted fenders, a top that conceals beneath the metal panel, and a windshield that can be lowered into the cowl by means of a hand crank mounted under the dashboard. This Cadillac Series 62 was first built in 1941, which was a great year for the company. It was the year that the iconic grille we saw in Cadillacs for decades was first introduced. It was also when Cadillac really stepped into the modern world and the current world of styling with wider, longer, and more linear cars. Cadillac actually made this one-time three-window coupe for Clark Gable. After Clark Gable purchased the vehicle, he sent it to Donnelly Cadillac, which did customizations. This was when the windshield was first raked, the chrome was reduced, and more changes were made to turn it into a truly unique three-window car. This car is considered the first modern sports car and one of the most attractive cars ever built for its tight lines and graceful look. This car, one of only 2 Series 62s built by Ghia, combines the exotic looks of an Italian-bodied custom with the powerful and reliable running gear of a Cadillac. Back in the 50s, you could actually order a chassis from a manufacturer and then have it sent to a coach builder for a custom body to be fitted. This Ghia features fitted luggage in the rear, a massive 2-piece rear window, and tiny Italian tail fins. This 1954 Plymouth Explorer ticked all the boxes when it came to dream cars that could have well represented and might still be the sexiest body ever built on the Plymouth chassis. The Jaguar XKSS was a road-going version of the successful Jaguar D-Type racing car. It was acquired by Steve McQueen, and this one was originally white with a red interior, but Steve McQueen had it repainted a favorite shade of green. He had the Dunlop wheels polished and had the interior retrimmed in black. The Coddington Illuma Coupe may look out of place in this gallery, but there's a reason it's here. The mid-engine hot rod was designed by General Motors and Ford designer Larry Erickson and built by legendary Boyd Coddington. Mitsubishi provided the instrument panel, and 1991 Eclipse 4-cylinder engine. The Illuma Coupe is an interesting mix of old styling, modern technology, American hot rod, and Japanese power, and was based on Ford coupes of the 1930s. And here it is, the best for last. This exotic round-door Rolls-Royce was constructed in 1925 with a Hooper Cabriolet body for its first owner, a Mrs. Hugh Dillman of Detroit. It appears never to have left England and was resold when still virtually new to the Raja of Nonpara. In about 1934, another owner sent the car to Jonquière of Belgium to be fitted with fashionably aerodynamic coachwork complete with twin sunroofs, round doors, a large fin, and a sloping radiator shell. This is considered the rarest Rolls-Royce in the world, so I hope you appreciate the beauty of this car as much as I do. It is absolutely stunning. Anyway, as you watch me measure out the size of this absolutely beautiful car, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please check out any of my other automotive museum or travel videos after this one. Thank you so much for your support, and have a great day.